The elevator that didn't speak city was loud. As always, cars honked without reason. People moved like they were all late for something important. Tall glass buildings stretched into the sky, reflecting light and ambition, and inside one of those buildings, near the 27th floor, a woman stood with her hands clenched tightly in front of her. Her name was Clara. She wasn't famous. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't someone who got noticed in a crowd, but she was drowning. And no one could see it. That morning, Clara had forced herself out of bed. Her body ached from exhaustion, and her heart felt like it was carrying weights. She worked as a junior assistant in a big production company, the kind that made movies, signed actors, and forgot people like her even existed. Her manager barely knew her name. The others in the office never really asked how she was doing. They just handed her coffee orders, stapled scripts, scheduled meetings she was never allowed to attend. Today, she had spilled coffee on her blouse before she even reached the office. She had also forgotten her lunch, and worst of all, her doctor had called her that morning with a voicemail she couldn't bring herself to listen to. She knew what it was about. The test results, but her body had already given her hints. The constant tiredness, the dizziness, the weight loss she hadn't tried for. And now she stood in the elevator lobby, staring at the floor number display, trying not to cry. The elevator opened with a soft ding. She stepped in without looking. Then she froze. Keanu Reeves was standing inside. Alone. He gave her a small nod. Not a celebrity nod, not a fake smile, just human, respectful, calm. She almost stepped back out, but the doors closed behind her before she could. Now they stood in silence. Her, in her coffee-stained blouse, heart pounding, mind racing. Him, dressed simply in a black jacket and gray scarf, holding a folded script in one hand. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The elevator moved. Floor 25, floor 24. Then something happened. Clara felt her chest tighten, not from excitement, from panic. Her breathing became shallow. The walls felt closer, the air thicker. Floor 22. Her hands shook slightly. Her fingers dug into her sleeves. She had lived with anxiety for years, but it had never hit her this hard in public. Not like this. She kept her head down, trying to count her breaths silently, but she couldn't. She couldn't catch it. Her lungs were collapsing inward. Her eyes burned. 4:21. She felt tears coming, and she hated it. Not here. Not in front of someone like him. But then, without a word, Keanu reached into his jacket pocket and gently offered her a small, folded handkerchief. No eye contact, no questions, no judgment. Just a silent gesture. As if to say, I see you. Clara stared at it for a moment, unsure whether to take it. Then she did, and something in her lungs relaxed. She didn't wipe her tears yet. She just held the cloth in her palm, like it was a rope pulling her out of the dark water. 4:19. Her breathing began to slow. She didn't say thank you. Not yet. Her throat was too tight. Keanu didn't press. He simply looked forward. Present. Aware. But never intrusive. The elevator dinged again. He stepped out first. He glanced back, only once, smiled gently. Then walked away. And Clara? She stood there as the doors closed again, holding the handkerchief like it had saved her life. Because maybe it had. That evening, Clara sat on her bed, still holding the cloth. She had looked at it several times since then. It was soft, clean, with a small embroidered initial in the corner, a K in white thread. It smelled faintly of lavender. But what mattered most was what it had reminded her of. She wasn't invisible, not to everyone. Someone had noticed her, even if he didn't know her name, even if he never said a word. Someone had seen her pain and responded with kindness, and that single moment had helped her breathe. She finally opened the voicemail from the doctor. Her hands trembled as she listened. The voice was calm, clinical. Clara, this is Dr. Elmore. We've received your blood work. I'd like you to come in tomorrow to discuss the results. It's important. She closed her eyes. Deep down, she already knew she wasn't okay. And now she had to face it. But somehow, that handkerchief reminded her she wasn't completely alone. Someone out there cared. Even for a moment. And that was enough for her to get up the next day, to go to the appointment. To keep walking. She put the cloth under her pillow and whispered, thank you, not just to Keanu, but to whatever force had placed her in that elevator at that exact moment. And her journey was only beginning, because the next time she saw him, She wouldn't be the same woman. Asterisk the voicemail, and the mirror the next morning was different. Clara didn't wake up because her alarm rang. She woke up because the weight in her chest wouldn't let her stay asleep. It felt like something inside her was knocking softly, saying, "You have to go. You have to know." The voicemail from her doctor still echoed in her mind. "Come in tomorrow to discuss the results. It's important." She sat up slowly. The handkerchief was still under her pillow, folded neatly, like a promise, like a reminder that even if the news was bad, someone, even just one quiet stranger, had seen her when she was falling apart. She took a long shower, wore her cleanest clothes, didn't use makeup. She didn't need to pretend today. The clinic was only a few blocks away. The walk felt longer. As she entered, the receptionist gave her a warm smile. Clara tried to return it, but her face didn't quite work the way it used to. She sat in the waiting room, staring at the wall clock. Every second ticked like a drum in her chest. Finally, the nurse called her name. The hallway smelled like antiseptic, cold and sharp. Inside the doctor's office, Dr. Elmore greeted her gently. He didn't smile. He didn't avoid eye contact either. He got straight to it. "Clara," he said, "your tests show early signs of a condition called pulmonary fibrosis." Her mind struggled to hold the words. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means the tissue in your lungs is scarring. It's making it harder for you to breathe properly. Over time, it can get worse. But we caught it early. That gives us options." Clara stared at her hands. They didn't feel like hers. "Is it curable?" Dr. Elmore didn't lie. "Not exactly, but we can slow it, manage it, with treatment, lifestyle changes, and the right support. Double quote support. That word echoed louder than the rest. She nodded, held herself together. "Do you have someone you can talk to?" he asked softly. She wanted to say yes, but she didn't. She thought about her tiny apartment, the way it echoed when she coughed, the missed calls from her father, who lived oceans away, the friends who had slowly stopped calling after her anxiety made plans difficult, and the handkerchief, the silent moment with a stranger who asked for nothing but gave something she didn't know she needed. "I will," she whispered. "I'll find someone." That afternoon, Clara walked home slowly. The city buzzed around her, but it felt like she was underwater, everything muffled, unreal. When she reached her apartment, she didn't go in. Instead, she turned right. And walked. No destination. Just a strange pull in her chest. It led her to a bookstore. Small, quiet, hidden between two loud coffee shops. She stepped inside and felt peace. The smell of paper, old stories, forgotten worlds. She wandered until she reached the back, and there he was. Keanu. Alone. Reading. Again. Her heart skipped, not because he was famous, but because she wasn't ready. Not yet. But she didn't turn around. Instead, she looked at the shelf beside him, pretending to browse. After a few seconds, he looked up. Recognized her and smiled, just like in the elevator. Soft, warm, human. Clara's throat tightened. She tried to speak, tried to say thank you, but nothing came out. Keanu stood slowly, didn't step closer, just nodded. "You're okay," he said gently. Not a question, a statement. Clara nodded back, then finally found the strength to whisper, "Thank you." His eyes softened. He didn't ask why, didn't ask what for. Just said, "Anytime." They sat down in the small reading corner of the bookstore. No fans, no cameras, no noise. Just the people, the open books, and a quiet understanding between them. They didn't talk much, but when they did, it wasn't about movies or fame or illness. They talked about books, favorite childhood snacks, how sometimes the smallest acts feel like lifelines. Clara didn't tell him everything. Not yet, but something in her shifted that day. She didn't feel so alone. She wasn't healed, but she was breathing. And when Keanu left the store, he placed a second folded handkerchief on the table before walking out. Clara picked it up, smiling through quiet tears. This one had a note inside. Handwritten, simple, "Keep breathing, it matters." That night, Clara opened her laptop. And for the first time in months, she began writing again. Not for work, not for anyone else. For herself. A story about a woman who couldn't breathe, and a stranger who helped her find air again. She didn't know where the story would go. But she knew this time she would finish it, because she wasn't invisible anymore, and soon she realized something else. That small moments don't just change lives. They connect them. And Keanu's kindness was about to come full circle. The words she never planned to say. 3 weeks passed. Each day, Clara woke up with a little more air in her lungs, not because her illness had vanished. It hadn't, but because something had shifted inside her. She had found small reasons to fight again. The writing helped. Each night, she wrote a little more of the story. The woman in her pages wasn't just a character. It was her. Scared, struggling, but still trying. And the stranger in the story? He was just like Keanu. Quiet, kind, unshaken by fame, showing up when no one else did. She never meant to share it. It was just for her. Until one night, she posted a small part of it on an anonymous blog. No name, no tags. Just the scene where the woman in the elevator receives a handkerchief from a stranger and breathes for the first time in weeks. Then she closed her laptop and went to sleep. The next morning, her phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, notifications, comments. The post had gone viral. People shared it with captions like, "This made me cry and I needed this today." Some said, "This sounds like Keanu Reeves." Others asked, "Is this based on a real moment?" Clara's heart raced. She didn't know whether to be proud or afraid, but one message stood out, a private one, from someone named Emily. "I read your story. My brother passed away last year. Since then, I've been struggling to breathe. Your words gave me 5 calm minutes today. Thank you. You reminded me that kindness exists." Clara sat quietly, holding her phone like it was something fragile. She never thought her pain could help someone else, but it had, and that changed everything. A few days later, she received an invitation from the studio where she worked. They were hosting a charity gala, a fundraiser event for respiratory illness awareness, sponsored in part by one of their biggest stars, Keanu Reeves. She stared at the invite. The timing was impossible to ignore. She hadn't seen him again since the bookstore, and she still hadn't told him about her condition, about the story, about what that single moment in the elevator meant. But maybe it was time. The night of the event, Clara stood in front of her mirror for a long time. Her dress was simple, blue, the same shade as the handkerchief he had given her. She didn't wear much makeup, but her eyes looked stronger now, less tired, more alive. At the gala, lights sparkled, people mingled, glasses clinked. Clara stayed near the edges, not quite blending in, but not hiding either. Then she saw him, Keanu, standing near a table of books and framed photographs from the charity. He looked just as he always did. Present, centered, kind. Clara took a deep breath, walked toward him. "Hey," she said softly. He turned, smiled, double quotes, "Hey." She held up something, the original handkerchief, folded, clean. "I think this belongs to you," she said. He looked at it, then back at her. "Actually," he said gently, "I think it found the right place." She smiled, holding back emotion. "There's something I need to tell you." He nodded. "Waited. That day in the elevator," she began, "I wasn't okay. I had just gotten the call from my doctor. I didn't know how to breathe. And you didn't ask me what was wrong. You didn't tell me to smile. You just gave me this." She held up the cloth again, and in that moment, it helped me stay. Keanu didn't speak. He just listened. "I wrote a story about it," she continued, anonymously, "and people read it. Some said it helped them. I never expected that." He smiled again, softer this time. "Kindness ripples," he said. "Sometimes we don't see where it lands, but it always lands somewhere." Tears formed in Clara's eyes, but she didn't cry. "I wanted you to know," she said, "that you helped me breathe. Not just that day, but every day since." Keanu looked at her, eyes kind. "And now you're doing the same for others," he said. "That's the whole point, isn't it?" Later that night, as the event wound down, Keanu stepped onto the small stage. People expected him to speak about movies. But he did in single quotes instead. He held up a copy of Clara's blog post. Someone had printed it and placed it on the charity table. He read it aloud. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just honest. The room was silent. When he finished, he said, "This story reminded me that sometimes we help people without knowing, and sometimes they help us right back." He looked toward Clara. But didn't name her because he respected her silence. Respected her space. Afterward, people came up to her, not because she was a celebrity, not because she was perfect, but because her story was real. The woman who couldn't Breathe had become someone others could breathe with, and something even bigger was waiting. Because a film producer in the crowd had an idea, and soon, that handkerchief, it would be on a movie screen. Asterisk, the story takes its first breath. Clara sat at her desk the next morning, her fingers still trembling as she opened her email inbox. The charity gala had ended only 12 hours ago. She hadn't slept. Not really. Her mind was still looping Keanu's words on stage. The way he read her story like it wasn't just a blog post, but a heartbeat. And then came the message. Subject line, film rights inquiry. Your story moved us. Clara blinked. Open. It was from Julian Markham, a respected indie film producer who had been in the crowd during the gala. His message was kind, thoughtful, short. I read your story. Then I watched the room listen to it through someone else's voice. I believe this is not just a story, it's a film. If you're open to it, let's talk. Clara leaned back in her chair, stunned. Her story, her moment, she had never imagined it would leave the four corners of her tiny apartment. They met at a small cafe 2 days later. Julian was warm and honest. He didn't speak like a salesman. He spoke like someone who truly believed in stories that heal. The beauty of yours, he said, isn't just the act of kindness. It's that you didn't know how powerful it was until it echoed back to you. He paused, looking at her. Do you want to write the screenplay yourself? Clara hesitated. I've never written one. Then this will be your first. He smiled. What if I get it wrong? Julian stirred his tea. Then we'll rewrite it. But it has to come from you. No one else can write that elevator moment. No one else breathed through it like you did. For the next few weeks, Clara lived between work, doctor visits, and writing. She met with her medical team, started her treatment. Some days were hard. Her lungs burned when she climbed stairs. She still coughed when no one was around. But she wrote. Every night. Sometimes in pain, sometimes in tears, sometimes smiling at the memory of that folded cloth in her palm. She called the script Breathe, and she gave the lead character no name. Just a girl. Because this wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had ever stood in a silent elevator, holding pain no one could see. One afternoon, she received a text from Keanu. Simple. I heard about the script. Proud of you. She replied. Thank you. I wouldn't be here without that handkerchief. He sent back. We never know how much a small thing means, but I'm glad it meant something. Then came the real surprise. Julian called her that evening. I sent the script to Keanu. He said. Clara froze. You. What? I told him he inspired the story. He read it, and he wants to do it. Do what? Be in the film. Clara couldn't breathe for a moment. Not from illness. From disbelief. He wants to play the quiet man in the elevator, Julian said, but not as Keanu, as himself, not a star, just a stranger who helped. The next day, she met with Keanu on set. It wasn't an official meeting, just coffee outside a studio lot. He looked at her and smiled. You sure you want me in it? He asked gently. This is your story. You were part of it. She replied. Then let's tell it right. Filming began 2 months later. Then, Clara had cut her hours at the office. The studio gave her full writing credit. She was listed as co-director, something unheard of for someone who had never worked in film before. She stood behind the monitor the first day of shooting, her eyes wide, her hands shaking, and there it was. The elevator scene. The actor playing her, a young woman named Elena, stepped in, tired, trembling, holding invisible pain. Keanu stood beside her. The elevator moved. Elena began to panic. And he, without a line, reached into his pocket and offered the folded cloth. Clara watched from the shadows. Silent tears fell down her face, because this time, she could see what others had seen. And feel what she once couldn't say. After the scene wrapped, the crew clapped softly. Keanu walked over to her. That was your breath, he said, and you gave it to the world. As filming continued, Clara received letters. Emails. Strangers who had seen early press releases about the movie wrote to her. Your story is mine. My mom died of lung disease. Thank you for sharing your air. I was going to give up. Then I read about you. But one message hit deepest. From her father. They hadn't spoken in months. His email said, I didn't know, but I'm proud of you. I'm here now. Let me walk with you through this. The story was no longer hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had ever held in a breath, waiting for someone to notice, and one moment was still ahead. The film premiered. And this time she would walk the carpet. Not as an assistant, not as someone forgotten in the background, but as the woman who breathed through pain and turned it into a story the world would never forget. The night the world held its breathy premiere was held at an old theater in downtown Los Angeles, the kind with golden ceilings, velvet curtains, and the smell of memory in the walls. The night was warm. Stars blinked above the city like they had something to say. Outside the theater, crowds gathered behind metal rails. Fans waved signs. Camera flashes blinked like lightning. Reporters stood under branded backdrops, waiting for something different, something real. And Clara, she stood at the far end of the carpet. Her hands were cold, her breathing uneven, not from illness this time. From wonder. She wore a long dress, deep ocean blue, like the handkerchief that had started everything. Her hair was pulled back simply, no glitter, no noise. When she stepped onto the red carpet, silence followed. Someone whispered, "That's her, the real girl from the elevator story." The moment moved like a wave. People clapped. Not loud, not forced. But real. She walked slowly, trying to remember how to breathe through it. The noise, the lights, the attention. Keanu stood at the center, talking to reporters. He saw her, and his smile changed everything. He didn't rush toward her. He waited. Let her arrive on her own. When she reached him, he took her hand gently, not as a celebrity. As a friend, as the man who once handed her a handkerchief without knowing her name. A reporter leaned in. "Clara, how does it feel to stand here tonight, after everything?" Clara took a slow breath. "It feels like breathing without pain," she said softly. The reporter blinked, then nodded. No more questions. That one answer was enough. Inside the theater, the lights dimmed, the crowd hushed. And the screen lit up. The film began. No explosions, no dramatic music, no names on the screen yet, just an elevator. A girl, and silence. When the panic began in the scene, the theater went still. Clara watched the crowd, their eyes wide, their breaths held. When Keanu's hand reached into his pocket and offered the handkerchief, someone in the back sniffled. A soft sob. Then another. And another. By the time the first act ended, the audience was leaning forward, hanging on every silent moment. When the final scene came, the one where the girl, now stronger, hands a handkerchief to someone else in a hospital waiting room, the room shattered. People cried openly. No shame. No pretending. Just emotion. The credits rolled. The theater stayed silent for a moment longer. Then the crowd stood. Applause roared, not just for the acting, not just for the script. But for the truth behind it, for the breath inside it, for the pain it carried. And the healing it shared. After the film, a private panel was held on stage. Keanu spoke first, thanking the crew, the supporters, the people who believed in kindness. Then he stepped aside, and Clara walked to the microphone. No cue cards. No rehearsed speech, just her voice. "Thank you for coming," she said. People quieted instantly. This story began with silence. A silence caused by fear, by pain, by illness I didn't understand. In an elevator, I couldn't breathe, and someone saw that, without asking, without needing a name, and gave me something small. She held up the original handkerchief, a small square of blue cloth. The theater leaned in. This helped me breathe, not just my lungs, my soul. She looked at the crowd, and now I give it to you. She placed the cloth on the podium. Let this remind us that the smallest act of care can be the beginning of someone's healing. The room stayed silent. But it wasn't empty. It was full of people breathing together, connected by one quiet truth. We all need each other more than we admit. After the panel, fans approached. Not for autographs. For stories. "I had a panic attack on a bus once. No one helped me. I wish someone had seen me. My sister died of lung disease last year. Thank you for making her feel visible again. I'm a nurse. I keep handkerchiefs in my pocket now." Clara smiled through every tear. And in a quiet corner near the lobby, Keanu handed her something, a small box. Inside it was another folded handkerchief. This one white, embroidered with a single word in the corner, "Breathe." That night, Clara went home to her small apartment. She changed into her old pajamas. Sat on her bed and stared at the ceiling. She didn't feel famous. She didn't feel healed. But she felt whole. She had turned pain into air. Silence into story, and kindness into something that would outlive her. She smiled, held the handkerchief in her hand, and whispered, "Thank you," not to the cloth. Not even to Keanu. But to the moment itself, the one that had reminded her She mattered dot, and soon the world would know just how much. But there was still one letter left to write, and one final voice the world hadn't heard yet. Asterisk the letter no one saw coming. A week after the premiere, the world was still talking. Articles flooded the internet. How a Handkerchief helped millions breathe again. Keanu Reeves stars in the quietest, most powerful film of the year. The real woman behind Breathe opens hearts across the globe, but Clara didn't feel like a star. She felt, still, like the wind had paused around her. The noise was outside now. Inside, something deeper was happening. She had spoken her truth, and the world had listened. But there was one person who hadn't, and she knew it was time. Her mother. They hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years, not because of a fight, but because of silence. When Clara's illness first started showing signs, when she grew tired, short of breath, emotionally distant, her mother didn't understand. She told Clara to get some rest or be stronger or stop being dramatic. Clara stopped trying. The phone calls ended. Love didn't, but the connection did. And now, after everything, she felt the weight of that unfinished chapter. So she sat down, took out a pen. And wrote a letter. Dear Mama, I want to tell you something. One day, I was in an elevator, unable to breathe. I was breaking, quietly, and no one knew. No one, except a stranger who didn't ask questions. He just handed me a cloth, a small, folded square of kindness. That moment helped me live, not because he saved me, but because he saw me. Since then, I've been learning to breathe again, not just with my lungs, but with my heart. I've shared my story. I've listened to others. I've cried, and I've healed. But Mama, something still hurts. I missed you through all of it. I know you didn't mean to push me away. I know you loved me the best way you could, but I needed softness, and you gave strength. I needed listening, and you gave advice. You wanted to fix me, but I just needed you to sit with me. It's okay now. I forgive the silence. I just hope we can feel it again. Maybe not all at once, maybe just a little, like breath returning. I love you, always. Clara sent the letter by mail. Old-fashioned. Intentional. And then she waited. Days passed. Then a week. No reply. She told herself it was okay. Healing isn't owed to us on a schedule. It comes when it's ready. One morning, while sitting in her tiny kitchen with a tea bag steeping slowly, the phone rang. A number she knew, but hadn't seen in years. Her hand trembled as she answered. Mama. Silence. Then a soft breath. Then a voice. Me, Amber. I got your letter. Clara closed her eyes, tears already falling. I read it every night since. I didn't know you were hurting so much. I didn't know how to help. But if you let me, I want to learn now. Clara pressed the phone to her chest, just for a moment. As if holding her mother again. Yes, she whispered. I want that. They spoke for an hour. Not about illness. Not about the film. Just about the little things. Childhood memories. Funny dreams. Favorite foods. The things that breathe life back into broken spaces. A few weeks later, Clara visited her hometown. Her mother opened the door. Older. Gentler. Tears ran down her face before a single word was said. They embraced like time had waited for them, like silence had run out of reasons to stay. That night, as they sat on the porch, her mother reached into her pocket. And handed Clara a small, folded handkerchief, not store-bought, hand-stitched. Blue. On the corner, a single word. Hope. Clara held it tight and smiled. Thank you, she whispered. Her mother nodded, wiping her eyes. Someone once gave you breath, she said. Now I want to give you hope. Months passed. The film Breathe continued to spread across the world. People from every country shared their own moments. I was seen. I was helped. I offered kindness today because of you. Teachers shared it with students. Nurses showed it to patients. People left handkerchiefs in public places with messages written inside. You matter. Keep going. I see you. Clara kept writing. More stories. All inspired by real moments of human kindness. And everywhere she went, people recognized her. Not for fame. For truth. She once met a little girl in a bookstore who whispered, I panic in elevators too. Clara knelt, smiled, and gave her a handkerchief. The girl held it like treasure. And that's when Clara knew. Keanu's small gesture had become something far bigger than either of them could imagine. Not a movie. Not a trend. A movement. A quiet acts that save lives, of noticing pain no one talks about, of giving breath to someone, even if only for a moment. Years later, Clara sat on another panel. A young journalist asked, "How did it all begin?" Clara paused, smiled softly, and said, "With silence, and one person who didn't walk away from it."